Hey there, I am so glad you're here. Come on in and enjoy Coffee Chat at the Cubby Hole. Okay, you might be thinking, coffee sounds fun, but girl, what is the Cubby Hole? The Cubby Hole was a divine little nudge on my heart, if you will, to build the space in our basement, in our home, where our friends and family could come and receive encouragement and love. And that's exactly what we've been doing. I've always known that the Cubby Hole would have a ripple effect out into the world, that it could bring encouragement and hope, not just to people that could visit here in person. That is exactly why I do Coffee Chats. I get to take some of the coolest people that are just like you and just like me, who have skill and talent, but most importantly, they have a vulnerable, relatable story that we can all glean some hope and encouragement from. So grab a coffee, cozy up, and enjoy Coffee Chats at the Cubby Hole. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee Chats at the Cubby Hole. I am so glad you're here. It's our last Coffee Chat for 2020. I can't believe it. It has gone so fast. We started doing these when the quarantine started, and it's been such a beautiful experience every single Friday, and I've loved having all of our guests. So thank you to all of you who've been such a support, who've watched, who've shared. I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You guys, I am so excited. Not that it's the last Cubby Hole Chat, because I'm going to miss you guys for a couple weeks, but I am beyond excited about my guest today. Even more so than my guest. I'm going to tell you why I'm so excited to have him on, but I'm so excited about what this topic is going to bring today for all of you. Today, we are going to talk about that moment when you look in the mirror in the morning and you have so much gumption, you're ready to go. You're ready to go light the world on fire. That's one scenario. Or you don't feel like you have the gumption and you want to light the world on fire, but you're just not feeling it. Maybe it's because of limited beliefs. Maybe it's a mindset. Maybe you're experiencing fear, doubt because of imposter syndrome. Maybe there's so many things you want to do, but you just feel so incredibly overwhelmed. Like, where am I going to begin? Maybe what you're thinking, what are people going to think if I do that? Have you ever experienced that? Maybe you have regret. Maybe you think life didn't go the way that it could have gone, or you didn't make the choices you could have made. And you feel like it's prohibiting you from moving forward. Well, my guest today has walked that road. And honestly, we, for the last 18 years, have been walking the highs and the low together. So I can't wait to share those topics. But let me introduce you to my beyond extremely special guest to me. This guy, okay, years and years ago, I was a single mom. He was a single dad. And I remember thinking, I said to my mom, I would love to find a good man. I knew marriage was for me, but I just would have loved to have found the right person. She said, don't forget about God. I didn't have a relationship with God. I was like, okay, whatever, Mom. And one night I threw the covers off of me and I just cried out to God and said, God, it's me. Do you remember me? It's Marlo. I don't even know if you know me. I would love to meet a wonderful man that I could care for and that we could care for each other. And the next day I went on Match.com. Yes, I did. Sushi Girl 91 went on, and my eyes landed on Confident and Kind. His name is David Rutz. He's been my husband for many years. I adore him, not only as my husband, but his business brilliance. He's incredible. I've watched him run and begin companies. He is the vice president of services for Longevity Corporation, and he is also the founder and CEO of David Allen Capital. So let me bring this guy on and welcome him. Hey, how are you, Dave?
How do I talk after that? I'm in my office. I'm ready to be a businessman, and then all that stuff, and I just come home and give you a hug. So,
and then wow, there it is. I don't say this to all of my guests. But thank you. Thank you. What's that? No, what's that?
I said, nor do I.
That's true. I don't say this to all of my guests, but I'm going to say it to you. Thank you. Thank you for taking out the trash this morning.
You're welcome. Yes.
We've already had a chance to have a coffee chat this morning. We do that every morning as much as we can. And boy, we sure do talk about a lot of different things, don't we? I mean, there's so much that happens in our world. And truly, you know this, that I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You are someone that I really lean on. We lean on each other for the things that I was just introducing, just talking about. I know you've walked it. I've walked it. We've laughed. We've cried. And it's just really, really great to share this with you. But David, you know where I would love to start, because it's the part that we cannot deny. It's really what's carried us through is our faith. I want to talk about our faith, but I want to start by saying, I know in the beginning of our relationship, I didn't have faith at all. I prayed, we met each other, but I remember you were very into your faith now and then. But when struggles would come along, you would say, maybe watch a Joyce Meyer, or maybe reach out. And I just didn't have a lot of faith other than us coming together and meeting. But over the years, I had to find that journey for myself. I watched you in it. You would suggest it, but I just couldn't. And then God found me on my own, and my journey began. But would you talk about your faith in all that I've mentioned already, and how it's carried you through?
Boy, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, it's interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to others, but there's obviously, just like before we started this, we prayed together, right? Because we're both believers that, our lives are really ours, but we have help, and we have the Holy Spirit that we can depend upon. And we didn't always feel that way. I didn't always know that. I was raised to believe in Jesus and believe in God. But at some point in my mid-20s, maybe, I really felt like I accepted that, like my adult, mature way of accepting Christ into my life. And they call it being born again in the Bible. I didn't necessarily ever read that part of the Bible, right? So I didn't even realize that I was doing that when I did it. But it was a personal time with just me and God. And then over time of growing that faith, it really is the ultimate counselor. You hear that, we say that, but I've got a picture in our home office, as you know, of a businessman sitting in his desk, and he's getting counsel, and the person sitting across the table from him is Jesus. And it's because I need to remind myself to not get in front of my faith and get in front of God on what we're doing. And then when you and I meet and it comes into our marriage, I mean, we all have, I don't know anyone who doesn't have some sort of struggles in their marriage. Right. We've had a lot of them. And if not for our faith, we probably wouldn't have made it to where we are today. Right. And, your faith and mine, and you coming to know Jesus the same way I do, been spectacular for all of us. But I think a friend of mine, Wade, who's a business partner of ours, he said to me the other day, let's not let our business compromise our character. And we're not, but that's because he's a man of faith too. And it's so easy to step aside from doing the right thing when you're not literally going to your source for the guidance.
That is beautiful, beautifully said. I love that picture in your office. And that picture crosses my mind often when I'm trying to figure things out, when I'm in my own skin, in my own head, and I have to picture Jesus across from my desk. Because sometimes you and I can't even figure it out for each other. And to lay it at the cross and give it to him that has been perfect. You did mention our marriage. And so everybody that's watching, I talked about that we're going to talk about some business things and some mindset things, but we are going to delve into a brief little section. Maybe we can do a bigger section some other time on a separate call about marriage and the things that we've journeyed through. But what you just said is the hub. It's the foundation of everything, is leaning on our faith and not leaning on our own understanding. And it took a long time. And I also wanted to encourage couples out there, if you don't feel like you're equally yoked, you didn't marry somebody that was necessarily, I mean, I went through the motions in my life, but we were not equally yoked. I didn't know what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus. And sometimes the person needs to find that on their own. And David, you were so supportive in that for many years, for several, probably 7 years in our marriage. So the message to everybody is to just be patient, keep praying for the person that they'll find that relationship. Okay. So
wait, before you go on, you mentioned when we met on Match.com. I think it's funny. I was on for 1 week only, right? Mm-hmm. So I signed up. When was this? 2002. And it was actually Yahoo Dating that I signed up for, but Match.com bought them the week I joined. So instantly I was in the Match.com inventory too, if you look at it that way. So the good news is when I got there day one, I picked the username Kind and Confident.
Right. Yeah.
And someone wrote me and said, I don't remember how it was, but it's kind of like, I'd probably ask you to get to know you better, but I need someone who's confident. And for you to only be kind of confident, I'm like, kind of confident. I'm actually quite confident in things. And I looked at my username, kind confident. Yeah. And confident. So I switched it to confident and kind the next day. And it's a good thing, because I don't know that you would have, whatever you call it, the match button or whatever, to introduce yourself to me. And I was, the whole story in itself about when you just know, and I just knew. But
yeah, and that's a great word too for people that are single. We were kind of the pioneers in online dating. I remember my mom was like, what, like what, don't give out your phone. It was new then, who knew? But that's a word there for people that are single. I'm a firm believer in online dating. You can be careful about it, but I wouldn't have met you, and you were new to not even Match.com. I had been on for a little while, and I just hid my profile. I was done with it. So if you're discouraged with it, stick with it. But then when I prayed and I went on and I saw you, we talked the next day, and we joked, we've been on our first date since then. We got engaged 9 months later, and the rest is history. But that's encouragement, especially, during the holidays right now. Not that we have to have another person to make ourselves complete, but that's encouragement, because in today's world, and with all these quarantines going on, you can really get to know somebody. You can talk on the phone for a really long time before you really meet in person. So
make sure you watch your username, because it can totally send people the wrong way.
Yeah, confident and kind. I love it. Wow, I love that story. We were talking about our faith, and I was, and I wanted to go back to your profile picture. Really intrigued me. It was a long shot picture of you standing on stage with your arm on the podium. And the reason I loved that picture, and I still do, is because there was something about that picture where I could tell you were speaking from your heart with such passion. If there's a way to describe you truly, it's that you pour your heart out to people in your personal life, and who you guys see David as business. That's who he is everywhere. Your heart is really is made of gold, and it carries over into your businesses. But I want to jump over to your businesses that you've started, and I've watched you. You've been so successful. That's obvious. And we talk about the business stuff at the end of these chats. What I'd love for you to jump into is what I mentioned in the beginning. I mean, what do you do? You've been very successful, but I see the behind the scenes, the trials, the adversity, sometimes the mindset shifts in the wrong direction. What do you do in those moments?
Well, what I do now is a little bit different than what I used to do, right? Mm-hmm. What I used to do is get frustrated. What I used to do is blame. What I used to do is look around and find the fault in others, or in the partnerships, or the suppliers, or the computers, or it didn't matter what it was. It was always some other problem. But if you're talking about business and then there's the home and being a dad and being a friend and a son and, father, there's those frustrations too. But in the end, a lot of it comes down to the same things. And what I learned was a lot of stuff that I was viewing life through, it's like looking through this glass. I mean, I just changed. I'm the same person, but you're seeing something different because it's a different perspective. And I had a perspective that I applied to everything in life. And that caused me to, when I had any feeling of fear or offense or lack of confidence, anything, many times it wasn't even real. It was just my perspective of it. So, there's things I do now for that I didn't always do. And I don't know if you want me to go into that, what I did and what I do, but I will say, and cut me off if you don't. But,
as far as the mindset and we're going to talk about that in a minute with the where things are rooted. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but I think that, always being told I could accomplish anything I want to accomplish. I meet a lot of people who are far more successful in life than me, who were told they couldn't accomplish anything. So I don't think it's a prerequisite, but I always felt confident that I could try things and do things because I was always told by my parents that I could, and my older siblings that I could. And maybe I don't remember having to defend myself as a young, the youngest of four. I don't remember having to, my brother picking on me or my sister. Right. I don't have any of that. So I had pretty a soft kind of babied. I wouldn't say baby. My mom's probably watching, but
here comes the.
I was baby. Delete. I wouldn't say I was baby, but I would say I had I didn't have a toxic childhood and I didn't have a troubled childhood. But I see so many people that are very successful who did. So I don't attribute how I respond to life because of that. But I did. But I also had some experiences in my youth that not in my home, but through school and through other things, caused a perspective to develop that I then carried with me until only recently.
I can't wait to get to that because that is so powerful. And I wish I would have mentioned in the promo, but I'll definitely do it when I do a description of this call, that this is also, we are gonna touch on marriage, because our success in business, everything else, is surrounding that. And that's a really that's a fact. And if that starts to take a turn, or other areas in our personal life, then we have even more overwhelm. So I love what you said about, your childhood. That is so true. As far as business, I love your stories. You've been doing business, your whole life. I love your story about will you tell the story real quick about the oil at the gas station? I don't even know if your career started then, but it's your passion and your drive to find a way and to succeed in business.
Well, this is very uncomfortable, guys, because I'm talking with my wife, right? And I want to tell everything great about her. I want to just get you to know Marlo if you don't know her already. And many of you do. That's why you're here. But it's uncomfortable to talk about me when my wife's here because I want to just lift her up.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, honey.
But because you said,
this is the light is on you. And right. And your light, like we prayed about in the beginning, that the stories and the adversity and all of it that God gave you in your light, you get to recycle that and shine it out to others that may need it. So that it's shining a light on you, but it's a beautiful way to, you're giving to others through your story.
Well, thank you. Well, you mentioned the selling the oil thing. I think about that all the time. I was 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9, but I still rely on that for confidence now. Mm-hmm. It's like something may have happened when you're 7 or 8 or 9 that you rely on to scare you now. You can also look back to the things when you're 7 or 8 or 9 to rely on for confidence. But basically, I was walking to 7-Eleven trying to get a Slurpee. Yeah. And, they cost 20-something cents. I didn't have 20 cents back then. This is in the early 70s. And there was a gas station across the street from the 7-Eleven. And as I was walking there with my friend who had money, so I'm going to watch him get a Slurpee.
Right.
And I'm not going to get one. I had a reason why. Right. I had a motivating factor that I'm missing out on a Slurpee. He's not. And I'm probably talking to him along the way. Hey, come on, just let me have some of your Slurpee. I don't remember. But we were walking by this gas station, and back then it was full service, probably, maybe not. But they had a big display of oil, oil for your car. And I had probably just seen a movie, Smokey and the Bandit or something where they had to put oil in. I don't remember.
That was a good one. Remember when HBO came out and it played on a loop? Oh, that was the only movie on. Yeah.
This is true. Well, I just remember thinking that oil is not going to jump off the shelf and get into the car. I wonder if the gas station owner will let me sell some. If I sell a little bit of oil, can I then get the Slurpee?
Mm-hmm.
So I just went in and asked the guy behind the counter, can I help you sell your oil? I'm trying to buy a Slurpee. So he allowed me to stand out there and talk to some customers. And of course, just like selling Girl Scout cookies, you don't say no to a 8-year-old girl who says, I'm trying to raise money. I had success selling oil. So I only sold enough to get my Slurpee. I had accomplished my goal and I went and got my Slurpee. But what I take from that is I started having confidence then. Now, if he would have slammed the door on me and said, get out of here, I don't know. Maybe I would have never been an entrepreneur. You just never know. But he didn't. He encouraged me and he said, you go for it. I achieved my goal. So now anytime I meet with I met with some sort of deficit, I remember that's not, don't forget success is around the next corner. You just got to go in the next door and ask the question.
Yeah. Not only is that where confident and kind, because you've always been kind, your confidence started to percolate. So that's where confident and kind began. It's also where your grit began. Like you said, there are times in business where we're not always that 9-year-old little boy that people just want to buy it from them, or the Girl Scout. So sometimes we're set up for going to the real world, or like, hey, people are saying no, or there's adversity, or you have to hear no. In your businesses, there's been a common thread. Obviously, there's a sales thread. What's been your one? If you could give your number one, not objection from the end user, but the reps, the number one thing that they've had to struggle with, or the adversity that they've had, and what have you given them to overcome because you walked it yourself?
Wow. Well, some of who are watching this, we own and we've all been a part of the network marketing industry for a while. So that means we build and encourage and coach people to have their own home-based business, marketing a product or a service. And if they want to build a team, they can. So with that as a backdrop, we recruit and we train and we coach people every day. That's what we do. We see all kinds of things. So the number one thing, I don't know if I could say it's one, but a couple that come to my mind. One is their lack of belief in what they're doing. Not in themselves yet, first of all, in what they're doing. So I would say the number one objection we overcome early on is only be involved with something you're in life. Doesn't matter whether it's your career, being a parent, being a spouse, being a business owner, charity at church, whatever. Only be involved in it if you first wholeheartedly believe in it so much that you're just sharing a belief. Then you're not selling anything. Not promoting, you're just sharing something you believe in. So step one is, and we try to bring that out right away. If Addison, one of our sons, says, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business, I'm listening for how much do you believe in what you're talking about? Because if you don't believe like wholeheartedly that you can make that happen, it doesn't matter. Your personal insecurities won't overcome that.
Right.
You got to, if you believe 100% or plus 100%, and you feel like you're doing a disservice for the world to not know, now you might make it.
Right.
Still, that's only part one, is believing in what you're doing. But then part two is belief in yourself, right? And feeling at such a level that you're capable and deserving. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of people, and I can't put a reason why, I've got some ideas, but a lot of people don't feel they're deserving of that spouse. They're deserving of a relationship where there's not abuse. There's deserving of a relationship with someone who's got a job and making money, or will treat you kindly. And they also don't feel that they're worthy of being a business owner, a successful business owner. They'll be involved, but they don't believe they should be able to become financially independent. Many people. Yeah. So I would say number one is believing in what you're doing, like matrimony or parenting or business. And number two, getting to the point where you can believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. I'm jotting down little notes. I know it seems like I'm doing what I do to you all the time when we're having coffee. You're my number one witness that I do have a little bit of self-diagnosed ADD, because there are many times you're talking to me and I'm like, okay, I stepped out for a minute. Tell me what you said again. Like what? But I am paying attention. I do on every show, and I'm taking some notes, although it looks like I'm not. I am paying attention. I'm writing down some notes. One thing I love that you mentioned, it's that one of the things that you were just talking about is wrapped around the concept of that self-righteousness. And that's why I love the industry of coaching, because we all want to succeed in business, but sometimes we have to start with our roots. And one of them is that self-righteousness that's rooted somewhere. Why do we feel that way? And the other is the worthiness. Maybe other people are destined to make money or do big things. Oh, but not me, because of A, B, and C, based on some roots. We were doing some landscaping this summer, and we were just pulling out shrubs and yanking them out. And it was so cool to see the root system. It took a truck to pull out these roots, right? Remember that? That was trial and error, wasn't it? But I love the pictures that we took from that, because it's the root system. Thank you for sharing all that. You and I took part in a virtual conference this last weekend. GoPro, Eric and Marina Worry, they put on well, it's usually live, but it was a virtual conference with over 40,000 people. It was unbelievable to be a part of that. We both walked away like, yes, bring on Monday. We can't wait. One of my favorite things that he talked about, which goes back to what you were saying about selling. Remember, he was saying that his wife said, no, I can't sell. No, for years. All of a sudden, she was telling him about this restaurant she wanted to go to. And she's like, you have to try it. The sauce is amazing. And he just stopped her and said, do you know what you're doing right now? You are passionate. You want me to know about something, and that's all that it is. And I love that concept, David. It's the truth that when you're passionate about it, you feel like then you're doing somebody a disservice by not sharing that. And it is a mindset shift, isn't it? It takes a little while to transfer over to that, but that's the winning ingredient. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you. And by the way, and some people have a hard time with that if they've never been in sales or in business for themselves.
Right.
But not feeling worthy enough. If you were pulling out of a river, you just went kayaking with your family, and you get out of you're pulling your kayaks out of the water, and you pull out because it's getting real rough down below. The rapids are below you, and you start loading up your car, and you see someone go out and they don't get out, and they're going into the rapids, and they're just some kids who are out having fun in the river, and they're not wearing life jackets, and you've got life jackets. Do you feel like you're selling them to offer a life jacket, or do you feel like you're doing them a disservice to not offer it?
Yeah.
And so that's the same. Everyone goes, of course I'd throw them the life jacket.
Right.
Well, of course you would also be passionate about that thing that you decided to do if you believed wholeheartedly that they weren't going to be in better shape for not having you share it. They can deny the life jackets, right? They can say, no, thanks, we're good. At least you feel good about it, but you'd feel bad to yourself if you didn't at least share that on the way by.
That is for sure. I love that you mentioned that with life jackets. It just feeds perfectly into this next point that I want to get into, and that is the personal life around the business. We can learn, we can grow, we can go to GoPro events, we can do self-help, we can do all sorts of things, but we are looking in the mirror, right? We're looking at something else on this day. We're not necessarily, we want to be looking at our grit and our desire to go forward, but there's stuff happening in the other room. There's stuff breaking our heart. There's, there's kids, there's teenagers, there's spouses, there's heartbreak, right? And I know that you and I, one day, we talk about possibly, we're going to pray about it. Maybe one day we'll be on a stage sharing the ins and outs of our story. But for now, and just breezing over it, people that know us, they're like, oh, the Rutzes, look at the Rutzes. But it hasn't been peaches and cream. And we've had to go forward with our businesses in that. But what I love is what I mentioned on the promo yesterday, that I know your love for Jim Rohn. I wish that you would have had a chance to meet him when he was alive. But one of his quotes that is so amazing is that in order to have better for you, you need to be better. And you and I both learned that the hard way. We were going along, but we felt like we had these life jackets on. We thought we were leaning on God, but maybe we weren't. And we were trying to make the changes in business, but it was really the underroot system of what you and I needed to learn personally. We thought we had it all figured out. We thought we were secure with our life jackets. One of my coaching workshop exercises was born because it's something that you and I needed to experience together. We needed to walk it, live it, breathe it. So share any part of that you would love to share.
Sure. Well, it comes down to, like you said, our perspective of ourselves really changes our perspective on the world, right? And for life to change, we must change. Well, I thought, as a believer, I thought I was already submitting to Christ. I thought I was already submitting, but there's a humility that one must reach before they really do have change. I mean, there's story after story of God changing someone instantly, and that's great. But I can tell you, 15, 20 years of being a Christian and surrendering to God and going in prayer, things didn't change about me. Certain things, certain perspectives I had. Now, other things did. My heart was softened, but it's interesting how we can carry things with us that limit our beliefs in ourselves or limit our confidence. And even when we're saved and even when we're going to God, those things, and I know if we sit down with a group of 100 Christians who are praying believers, or any faith for that matter, where they feel their faith is helping them in their walk, I bet most of them still have struggles with things that aren't just healed, right? And whether it's a health thing or a mental thing, block. Well, for me, and I use this process now all the time. This was discovered, you and I just sitting there in one of our little talks and me being frustrated about something, right? And just sharing, I'm so frustrated with myself for how I react to things or how I respond to things. And this one specifically was anger with you, right? Or anger with our kids, not anger with business. I'd never lose my control with business. For some reason, I didn't have permission in my mind. You don't even go there. You're nice to everyone outside of this home. And in the home, though, when I was offended or I felt I wasn't being respected or my pride, I would lash out and react with an anger that was uncalled for and scary.
I want to clarify on your behalf, only with words.
Oh, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Fortunately, that's how I react, right? But when I was a kid, I'd punch a wall, so fortunately.
A lot of men can relate to that. A lot of people can relate to that. That's what I'm saying about this show is about, let's get real. Like we talk about business and skills and talents, but let's get real about what we're all walking through, the relatability, and thank you for being vulnerable.
Well, sure. Well, but what happens from that is you get sick and tired of looking back at your responses and your reaction, knowing it was wrong and saying, I'm never doing that again. Right. I'm never doing that again. And then reacting that way again, but feeling justified. So I always felt justified at the time. And it would only be later when I would cool off and in my mind go, that was just shitty. Mm-hmm. That was just wrong. It
is what it is.
Well, and so I remember one time just sitting there saying, I don't know why I have such a hard time with this or this or this happening, that I feel like I'm just not respected here in my home, or I feel like I'm being challenged. Even something as simple as, David, are you going to take the trash out today when I'm going off to work? And why would that bother someone? Well, I realized there was some perspectives I had that I had gathered. And so you said to me one day, David, I think you really need to look at, because as many of you know, Marlo does coaching and does empowerment, and she's gone through a lot of certifications on that. And so she said, I think you should look at something. And she just combined a bunch of different teachings into a little conversation with her husband. She said, I would just go back to the things. What are you thinking about right now? When is the first time you felt that way? When's the first time you started looking at life that way? When's the first time? And I started looking back, and it wasn't selling oil, right? There were things that I started looking in my middle school years of how I'd respond to things. And then my high school years, how I responded to things. And I started realizing that I felt taken advantage of by people. I never got bullied and no one ever beat me up or anything like that, but I felt like I was forced to just follow. We're doing this, you coming? And I felt like to fit in, I would just follow instead of doing what I wanted to do. I would just follow. And I'm just giving one experience. There were several others, but all of them led to the same thing, that you don't have a voice of your own. Now here I've been an entrepreneur, started my own companies, do whatever I want in my businesses, decide which way we're going, left or right, have all the voice of my own. But sometimes when I didn't feel like I had a voice of my, so because of that, sometimes at home, if I felt like I was being forced, even though I wasn't forced to just follow, I'd react. And I was like, I heard a story of a kid that got beat up on the bus on his hockey team, and he curled up in a ball, and they just kept beating on him and beating on him. And the rest of his life, anytime someone would just come close to, making him curl up, he wanted to just lash out at them. He was not going to be taken advantage of anymore. And so you said, just go back and look at those, look at how old you were, but more important, look at the experience, how it made you feel, and how you look at life now. So you call it the waterfall process. What happened to you, how you looked at it then, how it affects your life now, and then live that same experience as an adult with adult eyes, and how would you react to it? And I reframed it all. And I went and sat by the waterfall outside my office right here. So this is only the last 2 years. I've only had this office 2 years. And that's why it's called the waterfall process, because you came and saw me sitting there. And for about 2 hours, I just thought of anything. And I encourage anyone to do this. Anything that you look at life through that caused you some pain that is still showing up. It's still showing up. And it was still showing up for me 2 years ago. And it still does. And I got to reframe a thought where I'll go, you know what? That's David, you're responding to this person or this situation like that 12-year-old who was told, you had to do this or that, at school. Again, it was never in my home, so, but different situations with friends and stuff. So the process again was look at the experience, any that caused you pain, or that you carry through life. What happened? How do you think about it? How's that causing you to show up now? How's it affecting how you look at life now? And now look at it again from an adult perspective. As that adult, what advice would you give that little 13-year-old or 12-year-old or 17-year-old or 22-year-old? What advice would you give that person with what you know now? And now it reframes everything. At least it did for me. And it was instant. It wasn't like so this is after years of praying about it, years of asking God, please don't let me behave that way. Please don't let me respond that way. Lord, please take that from me. But he wanted me to learn something else, apparently.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. There's so much I want to say to respond to that. I'm going to try to keep it brief. But the first thing I want to say is, yes, that's the process that you went through that was transformative. And on the other side, for couples out there, both people have their stuff, right? And you bring your stuff into a marriage. You think you're fine. You're like, I've got a life jacket. I'm totally fine. I know Jesus now. Everything's fine. But when you do that exercise of digging into the roots and you find, I had my own ways of responding. You and I have talked about it before. There's a book inside of me called Stupid Girl. And I've got to write that book because God put it on my heart. And my triggers were feeling inadequate, feeling all sorts of things. And then that trigger, that's what it's about. It's a trigger. It's not that the other person even had to do it. They just have to mildly somehow represent it because of our own mindset. And then it then goes out on the person that you love the most. And that's what happened. But second thing I wanted to say is, one thing that we learned in the process of all that is remember the John Wayne theory, which is that men, that's why I know that there's a lot of men on here right now, same for women, but men carry so much because they, in their mind, have to be the leader, the nothing bothers me, certainly don't cry, don't feel it, certainly don't express it, because if you do, you're going to be perceived as not that John Wayne, hold it in man. And the person that explained that to us said that's why a lot of men die from heart attacks. They're carrying this. So just that process alone of you walking through that, and it was a burden relief, and it was an awareness that literally changed our marriage. That's the other thing I wanted to throw in there about that is no joke when you talk about the fact that, and again, we'll get into more of this some other time, but it was like there's a fork in the road and it's probably going to go this way because the triggers, and it of course affected us in business. And that was something that I just threw out to you. And I didn't know if I had hope. And people that know us, there's probably 3 people that know this story. So this might be news to a lot of people. from a couple of summers ago. But when I threw that out to you, I was like, okay, now I'm just going to continue moving forward over here. And I drove up and I pulled up and I saw you. There happened to be a spot open right in front of where you were sitting. You didn't see me, but I snapped a picture, and I have a picture of you because I was filled with tears. And I was like, look at him. He is like writing feverishly. And you walked in my office when you got home from that, and you said, I have felt the Holy Spirit has done a shift in my heart, and I had a major awareness. And so thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, honestly, I say this, I've seen a couple of other what are miracles in the world, but that is a little miracle in our marriage. And like we said before, nothing is wasted with God. All the trials and the adversity, along with the beauty. But for anybody that is out there, you're trying to do business, because again, these are our stories, but this, you guys, is about you. Because we don't want to be, the Facebook couple that shows up and we're like, look at the Rutzes, look, everything's great. They're doing business, but there's a real life scenario behind it all. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
I think the miracle of it is that God gave you the words to share the process, and then gave me the desire to do the process.
Yeah.
And then I felt the release as I was going through that process. So it was an answer to prayer, but it also took some work. You had to be some hands and feet and a voice, and I had to be some hands and feet and go do the work. Right. So, but it is it's transformational. There's no question.
Yeah. I mean, it's two people and their stories too. If you have someone that's offending you, it is important to take a look at the other person's story. You had your stories, and it's funny because you're the 6'6" big dude, you're just a really big guy, but you weren't always that way, even in high school. And so life looked a little bit different for you as far as maybe other guys or things that people said to you. And for me, I was raised very proudly by a single mom who had to, she had to make it work. She didn't have any choice. She had to make it work. So I was raised by a mom that was very, very strong. So I had this mindset that I had a certain mindset that I created for myself, that it's get it done. Oh no. You're not going to, I had my own set of strongholds. And when we surrendered that with that exercise and so many other things, we laid that at the foot of the cross. Our everything changed literally. Of course, we, probably offend each other maybe on a daily basis here and there. We have our little things, our little quirks, but it is nothing like it was before. And we need to praise Jesus for that. Yes, we were the hands and feet, but he performed a miracle in our marriage. So there is hope out there. I don't care how downtrodden you feel you are in your marriage and you're trying to do business, that there is hope. There is hope in Jesus in that. Thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
I love. Well, first of all, before we move on, it doesn't have to just be my questions. Is there anything that you want to share before we move on?
The only thing I'd like to say is, I mentioned just not fitting in or feeling like I had to follow. I would imagine if anyone watches this, like, dude, you have no clue what's happened to me. I mean, you had to follow someone. The depth of I've got other things. I'm just, for sake of the concept here, it isn't to compare. I go to a Bible study with someone who's got quite a background of abuse from his parents, and he made a point to me one time, or to all of us in our Bible study. He says, "Hey, pain is pain." And right. What I realize is people who are overweight and get snarled at, that pain they feel is the same pain when my dad hit me. Not me, but this guy. Or someone who, is divorced and they didn't want the divorce. That pain is no worse than someone who is called stupid. We have a level of pain that just hurts so bad it shuts us down.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what the past is. The experience can be the same. The pain can cause the perspective that impacts, unfortunately, negatively your whole life. But all those can be turned into fuel. So I would just say that, as I look at you and how you live life and the things you've gone through, the struggles you had and the things that you had. I was blessed. My parents paid for my university. You had to work your tail off all through college so that you could pay for your university.
Yeah.
That's a different hunger that you have to have, right? I didn't have to have that hunger. I had to get the grades to get into the school. And if I did that, my life was covered as far as school. And you had to get the grades and do the job and and so because of that, you're a stronger version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so if anyone's watching this, just compare and go, yeah, but you don't know what's happened to me.
Right.
I do know. I've heard all the different stories, and I've seen the transformation in all of them in every situation. Once a person decides to address that from an adult's perspective, rather than the age of when it happened to them, and looking at it from a different perspective, I shared with you, I have a hard time with certain types of guys.
Right.
That I feel like we're the bully. Go ahead.
You're of it years ago. It's one of those things that kind of stirred up through that process, and you're like, why have I always had this feeling? And then you realized why. Well,
yeah, I just think back to, those are the type guys that I had to follow. I don't want to follow those type guys. I want to show them they don't deserve to be followed. I mean, this is the motivation I'd have in my head, 2 years ago. And people I wouldn't want to golf with. We live in a golf community. I wouldn't want to golf with them because I don't want to be around those people. And I don't even know them.
Right. Yeah, that's
I know them. But it was a perspective. You see someone in great shape, and certain overweight people feel a certain way. And if you're in overweight, you feel certain people, or if you're in great shape, you feel certain overweight people are looking at you like you're all into your body and you just think you're all that. I know a lot of people that are in just perfect shape, physically got perfect specimens of health. They don't think they're all that at all.
Yeah.
They just want to be healthy. They love working out.
Yeah. Yeah. And go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I would just say that, as going through this experience is not even things where you feel hurt or violated, or sometimes it's just a perspective that you gain for yourself. Like my industry, I'm in network marketing. You know how many people have a perspective that network marketers are blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Network marketers aren't blah, 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 blah. Maybe someone you met in network marketing was blah, 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 but you can't paint the whole industry that way.
Oh my God. Right?
And people in great shape, you can't paint them all a certain egotistical, grunting in the gym. Look at me taking my shirt off. Check me out. Sometimes they're doing that because they want to feel, they want to see the results.
Right.
And that's the safe place to do it with the mirrors.
Yeah.
So we never know what someone else is carrying in their mind. And I think any brush of paint that we put on anybody needs to be put back in the can, and just let experiences paint that person rather than past perspective.
It's so powerful because of our mindset, we then judge and assume about other people, and it's not real. And that's part of that process too. I know that I love to talk about is the forgiveness element ultimately, but then the understanding of anybody, somebody that might be, somebody was joking about catty something about Facebook. Like, do you ever look at Facebook and you're just being catty? That person doesn't even know it because we're judging. But everybody has their story. Everybody has their story, and we can definitely get it wrong in that judgment. And that's part of that process of figuring out even, why does that bother me? And it takes you back to your root system. The reason you feel that way is because.
So back to the limiting belief and the confidence that you said in your caption about this show. Many times those limited beliefs are of ourselves, but they're also of the audience that we're going to talk to. I want to approach my husband about this issue, or my wife, and I've got a limited belief that they're going to respond a certain way, then I don't share it, right? So, but it's just a perspective I have. It may not be the reality. And same thing in business, or if you want to be a singer and you got I love watching not American Idol, but America's Got Talent and it's one of the things I do to get inspired all the time is I'll sit and cry in bed watching America's Got Talent Best Hits, because these people come up and they're like, I'm going to go for it, but I don't know. The ones who come up and go, I'm a great singer, watch me sing. I'm like, you might have a great voice, but the story of the person who's like breaking through and going, I don't think I'm all that, but I'm going to sing. Man, are they inspiring, right? So if you are one of these people who feel like you're lacking confidence and you're lacking maybe you got some insecurities or limited beliefs about yourself, I would ask how much of that is because of how you think you're being portrayed by others.
Right.
Many times you're not portrayed that way. Not all people look at me a certain way, or network marketing industry a certain way. Some do, most don't. Some will respond a certain way, most won't. And so sometimes we limit ourselves for the few. We limit what we do for the few who might respond negatively. We got to ignore the naysayers, stiff arm the naysayers, as we say, and just focus on, do you believe in it? Is it the right thing to do? Then it's okay to fall forward. It's okay your confidence will grow inch by inch, discovery by discovery. You're not going to jump from insecure to confident. You're going to take a step. And just that step is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you become confident? One little action at a time.
For sure. I do not want to forget. I want to end toward the end. We definitely have to talk about network marketing, because talk about a mindset shift in me. I want to talk about that because I know a lot of people are on here that are in network marketing or in sales. So I want to touch on that. We're just talking about limited beliefs. And I am so proud of you for so many things. And I'm not trying to embarrass you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, mostly the way that God's worked in your life. You were talking about limited beliefs. One of the talking points for today is regret. I would love for you to just take us back to your beginning of your college career, because I am very proud of you. Yes, the fact is you graduated from the University of Michigan from the business school. I am very, very proud of that for you. Period. The person in you that I am most proud of in that story is the person, and there's a lot of young people that watch this, is the person that, and I want you to tell your story, but the version of you going to community college, that's where that pride in that story begins for me, and even before that. But would you share that story?
Sure.
I just wanted to say you love the movie Rudy. I've always known that. And then it dawned on me one day, like mic drop, hello, you are a version of the movie Rudy. So if you would share that story.
Well, thank you. I love the movie because it reminds me of decisions made, but I'll just sum it up by saying my high school years, I didn't do very good grade-wise. Part of it was my perspective again. Got to fit in. I was a baseball player, decided not to play baseball because my buddies were going sailing after school, and I wanted to go to the local park right from school and go sailing or windsurfing or swimming or hang out. I got to fit in. If I don't do that all the time, this weekend I won't be going out with them either. And so I want to hang out constantly, and I would drop out of classes where I was getting an A so I could change my lunch hour to be with my buddies, right? So I was just doing things, just making mistakes, not living for my own life, living to try to be accepted, right? And so school didn't matter. It mattered, but it didn't matter enough. I was going to be a draftsman in college. After school, my dad was a draftsman engineer. My older brothers and sisters were. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. I can go to community college. I'll get my drafting stuff and be set. So my first year at community college, I withdrew passing from most classes. So it means I was getting a C or above, but I didn't want to keep going to class. So I just withdrew. My whole sophomore year of college, I became great at foosball. I finished second in the school at the ping pong tournament, and I withdrew from all my classes. And I was real good at video games in the student commons. That was my first year out of college. Completely lost. And I remember I dated a girl who said, have you ever heard of transferring colleges? I'm like, transferring colleges? Now I'm at a college called GMI, one of the best in the country for engineering.
She was there. You're saying.
She was there, and she said, have you ever thought about transferring? You could transfer to U of M Flint right here. I'm like, transfer? What's that? So it sparked something in me. And I thought, well, what do you got to do? And so I come home and a friend of mine says, hey, I'm thinking about transferring to Michigan. Now he had gotten all A's in his first year as community college. I want to go to Michigan. I'm like, you know about transferring too? He says, yeah. So I met the counselor. The bottom line was I had an aim.
Right.
I had a goal. I don't want to be lost anymore, getting good at ping pong and foosball. I want to live a successful life. I'm not following people anymore. It was the first time I said, I'm not going to just surrender to trying to fit in. All my buddies had gone off to their own things. So I was now kind of, you're on your own. And I talked to my mom and dad, said, I'm thinking of going to Michigan. They probably thought I had no chance because I was never going to school. They knew I had a chance. Probably didn't think. So they said, if you get in, we'll pay for it. So I met with the counselor. The bottom line is I went to U of M. I wanted to go to the best business school in the country. Believe it or not, Michigan was ranked #1 that year. So I'm like, okay, it's the best business school in the country. I can get in if I go to school for 2 years in college. They don't look at your high school, which I had a 1.1 GPA or something. So if you stuck in high school, don't worry about it. At some point, you can flip a switch, right? So I just got a plan. I got a plan. And she said, you got to get all A's. We won't even think about admitting you unless you get all A's at your junior college. So I had a goal, and nothing mattered anymore to me that time. So my buddy and I, he was going, I was going. My girlfriend decided to do it. His girlfriend, so all four of us said, we're doing it, right? We doing it.
Right.
All four of us got accepted into that school. So it was one of the proudest moments. I literally opened the letter, sitting in an old Chevette, reading that letter. It still brings chills to me now because it was a miracle for me to be able to go from barely graduating high school, withdrawing out of all my classes first year of college, and then to be able to go to the #1 business school in the country at the time where you just didn't get accepted. I mean, it was very hard to get accepted. But I know that the acceptance counselor liked me. And I knew if I got all A's, I was in. I knew it because she pretty much committed that.
Yeah.
With the pastor. So, yeah, it was a very good. I still have my letter for sports behind. I ended up playing lacrosse there. I still have that in my office. I have my helmet. I have my jersey. I've got my acceptance letter. Those are confidence builders for me. You've all got those too. Right. This isn't about me. It's about you watching. You've got experiences that you were confident, that built your confidence. Go back and do the same behaviors that got you to succeed in that, learning how to do that dance, learning how to do that, play tennis that way, learning how to get an A in school, whatever it was. You've got, making your wife feel extra special on that date when you did things you weren't thinking about, you wouldn't otherwise do. You actually had to think outside the box and search what do women like to do on a date. Right. Whatever. You did something to be successful. So right. Sorry, Marlo, that was a long answer.
I'm kidding. I love your story. And there's the other piece to that story. And it's not to brag about you, because again, this isn't about us. It's about the message that you can give with you really being a real life Rudy is then you walked on, I hope I have that right. You walked on to the lacrosse team, and there is a story in a message in that, if you would touch on that as well.
Well, I would just say that someone I met, I never played lacrosse before, and the captain of the lacrosse team happened to live in the same house I lived in, and so we'd throw the ball, and I learned. And he said, "You're pretty athletic. You should try to play lacrosse." I'm like, "Dude, I didn't even know what lacrosse was." But he said, "I can get you a tryout." Now it was not varsity. They didn't give scholarships out back then, but they played against varsity schools. Now they give scholarships, and I wish it was that way now. Save my mom and dad a lot of money. But the long and short was, I realized I'm going to try out. And another guy who lived with us played at Western Michigan on their team. Uh-huh. He played his whole life, and he said, "Dude, come on, man, you can't make that team." And so one of those guys that I always had to follow told me I couldn't make it.
Wow.
I just proved I could get into the school that people said, "You ain't going to go to Michigan. Come on, man." And so there's things, if you lean on them, you can accomplish great things. And so, yes, I did make that team. Yes, I did get my letter. Yes, I did start. Not only did I play, I ended up becoming a starter. And it was all because of a hunger to show that dude and show myself that I could. So sometimes it can be personal of a person who ignores you, who you said, "I'm going to have some success." And they have ignored it and didn't take it serious.
Right.
No better revenge than massive success.
What a quote. I love that.
Is that what you meant about other things in the yeah, okay.
I'm going to pull that quote out and attach it because that was good. I love one of the things that you and I talk about is that our life, this is just a bit of a hope if you need this today, that our life is like a connect the dots. It's just that this is how God shows he's a little bit of a comedian. Like the dots aren't always in order. We don't get the dots in order. We get the grit up here, and then it's like number 62. But down here, the lower number, we had to figure out the rest of it. And then eventually we connect it all, and it all comes together. And I thought of that because we were talking about your success in college. And then it's like God's looking on like, okay, I've got some other lessons that are going to be coming along. And that's what we started with in the beginning of the show. One of the other things that you've learned through business and we've learned through our life together, I commend you. You are, I'm not saying this because you're my husband. You are just let me say it. I know you're going to you're going to be like, oh, no, you are a brilliant businessman. Nothing jars you in business. It's really, really cool to watch. And it's really, really cool. I have different consultants in different parts of my business, but there was a point where I'm like, you know what? I need to talk to David. David is the person that I go to you for so many things. But you know, it wasn't always easy. You've started different companies. I've been so proud of you. One of them was called the Free Network, which is, I want to talk about at the end, which is your concept of free and network marketing. But I would love for you to touch on this because I know there's a lot of business owners out there, a lot of entrepreneurs, and that takes courage. Not only mindset courage, but it takes husband and wife trying to do this together. You're trying to pay the bills. You're trying to do all these things, and maybe you just want to give up. And I know if I start talking about it too much, I'll get a little teary-eyed about it because I know what that's like. You know, people see our life, but you don't know behind the scenes. So would you talk to people that are business owners trying to love each other and stay calm and make it work?
Well, I think that any business owner who is a business owner probably already has grit, right? You don't step out. We call business owners in our business the front line of capitalism, you know, rock stars of capitalism, because you imagine the risks they're taking. But you know what that does? That puts a lot of pressure on the home front, right? Because who gets paid first, your employees or yourself? Your employees. What payment you make, the rent payment on the restaurant building or the mortgage payment on the home. And unless you've got full buy-in from family, you've got to answer to being a provider, but you've also got to answer to being a business builder. And, you know, a farmer buys a plot of land and they need to build a home and they need to build a barn. Which one do they build first? The barn. It's where you keep the animals, because I need a house. We'll get you, we'll stay in a tent. Once we build the barn, we can make the money. But not everyone believes that. So when you've got a marriage or you've got parents who don't believe in that, in a business you're building, or if you don't have that spousal support or that family support, it's obviously very difficult. So going into a business, you need to respect the other person's opinion enough to hear them out. But at the same time, you need to be able to promote what you're doing in a professional way to help win them over. Right. Because otherwise you're going to be stuck. And I think that a lot of times people get a bad rap because they deserve it. They said they were going to do this and didn't. They said they were going to do this and didn't. I'm going to launch this business and quit after 6 weeks. I'm going to launch this one and quit after 8 weeks. I'm going to lose weight and try it for 3 days and stop. And so eventually you get a law of diminishing understanding. Right. And the more you do it, the less the other person's going to understand. So sometimes we've created our own little valley and we have to own up to it and say, I know we haven't shown it. I know I withdrew from all my college classes. I know I got a 1.1 in high school, but I'm going to change and I'm going to get all A's and I'm going to get in. And if I do, will you?
Right.
Say, if I say I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to do and do and do, will you support me as long as I can demonstrate that I'm doing what it takes? Here's my plan. I'm going to live the plan. And so I think that in marriage or in life or in anything, anytime you're in a relationship with people, you need to respect their opinion and you need to earn their respect in the business.
Right.
Because maybe you've taken it away in the past. But I think that you're amazing. I mean, you talk about me, and I know this isn't going to become it's been a love fest your way toward me. It's very uncomfortable because I need to just tell you how great you are in your empowerment and in your training and everything you're doing. And that little cubby hole, you talk about business school, folks. This little room she's in right here in our basement was We moved in, and the goal was, or the deal was, you decorate the whole house, I get the basement as a man cave, right? And so one thing, I don't do anything with it. I did nothing with it. I put some stud walls in. I framed it out, but I hadn't put drywall up or anything. One day she comes in from her prayer time, and she says, "David, I feel like the Lord spoke to me, and I need to convert our basement into a venue where I can do comedy and inspiration and coaching." And I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "So I want to redo the basement and make it like a clean comedy club where we can also use it as a venue." And I'm like, wow, okay. So man cave's gone, but fortunately I was no longer pride. Like, what about my man cave? So it was like, yeah, if God said it, I've been waiting for the day for you to step into your, it was like I always tell her this, you're like a cell phone tower of love and encouragement. We just plant you here, and anyone within your sphere receives it. And sometimes they don't know it. Don't say anymore.
I know. Thank you.
Don't stop me for saying it. And so it just goes. She's like
each other.
And so I'm just so proud of her. So she built this venue. Every single time we've had a Christian comedy thing there, or Christian comics come in from around the country, they're playing a super mega church, or they're doing this. All these people on the back wall, they're in her Christian Comedy Association. She says, "Hey, will you play the Cubby Hole?" And they all want to play. I mean, these are people who put thousands of people in their comedy things, charge all kinds of money, and they come do the Cubby Hole for our community for free. And we take a love offering and give them some of the love offering. But every time it's 100 people in there. And that means now, I don't know, near 1,000, because COVID stopped this. This is only years old. But she instead turns it into this. So what you're seeing behind her, in fact, Marlo, could you do me a favor and go grab the little chalkboards that are written with black behind you?
Yes. You talk for a minute, because there was something else I'm going to grab. Oh yeah, I sure will. Hold on. You think of something.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about this. So this is something that during her comedy and all this, she has everybody who are struggling. And so I'm going to encourage all of you to put yourselves on this board. But she has these little chalkboards that she passes through everyone in attendance and gives black chalk. And she said, if there's someone you want prayer for, or there's something you're struggling with, or you've got limited beliefs, or you've got confidence issues, or whatever it is, just write it on. No one can see it. And we're going to just pray over this. We're going to continue to pray over this and continue to pray over this. And they're hanging on our back wall there. And we do pray over it. And I'm just going to ask, I know you can't be there physically, but virtually you can be there. Virtually you can sign it. And so I want to show this chalkboard. Do you have the chalkboard?
I do. They actually hang, I'll just take you out real quick. They hang right here. See, there's the other one. So they both hang right there. Bring you back.
Next to it. Yeah. There's the other one. So fortunately, you can't read everything, but the black chalk, there's a ton of things written on there. Hundreds of things written on there.
The black. All right. I love you. And you can't see it.
Hundreds of people have written on there, and they get prayed over. And so if there's something that you need prayer for, and if you've never been a believer of prayer, if you're like, that's hokey, or, come on, man, you're wishful thinking. We're speaking from experience. We've had experiences. So I would just ask you to, consider that it could be possible.
Yeah.
The Big Bang that started, something designed that.
That's right.
And if so, then maybe all the people like me and Marlo and any other Christians who believe that there's actually someone who listens and the power of the Holy Spirit is available to us, I would just ask you to consider it could be possible, or we're all crazy.
Right.
That I've got conviction because of experience. But if you want to be added to that board virtually, just share that in your heart right now. Share it. You don't have to type it. If you want to, you can. But the reason it's Blackboard is so you don't have to share it. But if you're like, oh, I need help with my marriage, or I need help with Marlo and I were getting a divorce 2.5 years ago. I mean, we were going it was to the end. We're like,
I think we were going to drive in separate cars and go. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Thanks.
Put it this way. I typed up a divorce settlement so we wouldn't have to get attorneys.
Yeah.
It was that. We've got young kids and we've been through it, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And yet we are still willing to go through it because we had just met a crossroads. So if you're there, don't lose faith, because our marriage is better now than it's ever been. It's better than our first week when we were in love with each other right away. So if it can be better than when you first met, and it can be, don't lose faith yet. Obviously, if someone's hurting you physically, that's, creates separation, but, keep the faith.
And that's the truth. What's that, hon?
And I said, and put your prayer on the board, even if you can't be there, just put it there right now in thought, and we will be praying over it.
We will, for sure. And I remember the days, both of us, the paralyzing days where we're both trying to run our businesses and do what we need to do. And we were just devastated. And I am so grateful for the miracle that's happened in our marriage. So business-wise, personal life-wise, don't lose hope. It's the Christmas season. It's a hard time right now in general. Plus, you might be walking through some stuff, some muck. And the Rutzes here, we just want you to know, truly, beyond business, you're not alone. You're not alone. I want to end with a little shattered glass at the very end, but I would really love for you to touch on network marketing for sure. Like I said, you're vice president of services with Longevity, an incredible company, and you're also within that is your company that you started, founder and CEO of David Allen Capital. You are an advocate of a firm believer in giving people an opportunity. But there is such a misconception with network marketing. And stay tuned, guys. We're going to talk about this. And then there's a shattered glass story I want to share with all of you to give you a little extra hope for this holiday season. Would you talk about network marketing? Because I want to say this to any spouses out there. If your spouse is in network marketing, it was hard for me at first. I mean, very hard for many, many years. I was very supportive of you because I love you. But it ebbs and flows sometimes. And there are times where I'm like, I don't get this. Because I came from the corporate world. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what about the 401k? Like, what are we going to do? And we had a professional explain it to us one time. No, it's actually Dave Ramsey that explained that sometimes women or one of the other spouses has the security bone that you have to have that in mind when you're an entrepreneur, because it can be scary, high and low. So network marketing. Share everything you know and give all the inspiration you have. Go. You've got 2 minutes.
Best part. This is the best part. When I met Marlo, she had a network marketing company she owned and didn't know it.
No.
She made her own. We froze up. Maybe I froze, but it froze. She made her own soaps and then had home parties to sell them, and then recruited some consultants as home parties to sell them. Yeah. She didn't think she was recruiting, but she gave that opportunity. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't like network marketing. Do you know that you own a network marketing company? Yeah. It's small, but you've got 5 consultants who market your soaps and have home parties.
I know.
But because in the corporate world, it wasn't. So what she realized is what she was doing, there's nothing wrong with. And what I do, there's nothing wrong with. But some people in our industry, just like some people who market pharmaceutical drugs, do different things that hurt people. And some people at GM will do this. And there's outliers. As Morgan says, there's one-offs out there that do things. But all I can say is this. I don't know a company owner in our industry who doesn't have a passion to help people break through the not an entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Everyone, I was a GM employee. I was doing well. I was on the fast track, but I didn't like my cubicle. I didn't like getting up at 6 a.m. I didn't like being told, obviously you've already learned, I didn't like having to follow someone else's things. It's probably why I'm a business owner today instead of a rep in another company or a GM. But the point is, I was all that. I meet this industry, and next thing I know, 4 or 5 months later, I'm earning more than my GM career. I'm getting up when I want. Yeah. I'm helping people. So all I can say is, you don't have to love this. I don't want to be a surgeon, right? You don't have to be interested in network marketing. I would just say, if you're stuck on being an entrepreneur, and I don't want this to feel like a recruiting thing, so I'll just say this.
It's not. It's your heart. This is it's the network marketing I've learned over the years is an opportunity for freedom, even if it's alongside with what you're doing. But I'm just passionate about the stigma. It's the stigma that I want to talk about it, because I was the person. I was telling you all the time, I don't get this. What are you doing? Can you explain this to me again? And so
I would say this
differently.
Yeah, I would just say this. I've recruited probably 1,500 people in the last 30 years. I've been full-time. I've never had one person say to me, is this a pyramid scam?
Yeah.
Not one. So I think what happened, but people think, oh, if I ask, oh, is that a pyramid scam? I mean, here's the reality. I don't think the stigma exists like some people think. That just becomes what they voice because they feel they've heard that. So now they're following and falling in line with that. I would just say this, you got to believe 100% in anything to do it. So if you don't believe in our industry, you shouldn't do it. But unlike Marlo, who was in a situation married to me where she didn't have a choice but to let me keep doing it. I already own the company.
That's what we were doing, right?
She became less ignorant of it. She's not an ignorant person.
Right.
She was unknowing about our industry. You may just be unknowing about our industry if you don't like it. Maybe you've had a bad experience. You don't have to like it. But I will say this, if you come across someone in the network marketing space and they're talking about a business, yeah, they're trying to grow their business. But what we teach people is find people who are hungry, who are willing, and who are coachable, and teach them how to escape the rat race. That's what we're doing. So everybody has a motive to help an entrepreneur win if they're a pro. There's a lot of amateurs who don't. But I would just say this. I know I've got a training that we're doing for all of our agents here in 15 minutes. And I know you want to go to the broken glass. I gotta start by, well, you tell the story, but I just got to tell you, Marlo Rutz.
Oh,
I say Marlify it. She's working on a training right now that will be a show and everything will be acted out. And it's going to be spectacular because her brain, she says, I'm self-diagnosed ID. She's gifted with creative mind that feeds a heart. The heart that feeds a creative mind only can serve people. And so when we're sitting there having coffee and I'm going, yeah, I've thought about this or that, and all of a sudden, boom, oh my gosh. And she'll start writing, or I'll see her squirrel. I mean, there's no one who says squirrel, but she'll be like,
I know.
I know that gift moment. So it's like watching someone who's gifted at a piano. Go. I just go. You've got a gift, write it, say it, share it.
Thank you for that. The whole download of that show is literally in my phone. 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm wide awake, I'm producing that show. But that's a message for people that when you're married to somebody, David and I, we're alike in a lot of ways, but we are polar opposites. And I always say, if I can't fall asleep, what do I ask you to tell me about?
Tell me about your comp plan, David. Tell me the comp plan.
And I'm out like a light.
No, because I love the details.
He'll be telling me something integral. I know you got to go. But then, I'll be like, hold on, I got an idea. And so we work well with that.
Well, I think the most important part about bringing up your creativity, I know you're going to tell the glass story, hey, take something and turn it into something special. But more importantly, I used to get offended by that.
Right.
I'm talking to you. I listen to you when you're talking because I'm analytical and I'm listening to it for logic. And
I knew I was doing it. I'm like, I am so sorry, but I have no idea what you just said. Yeah.
Just reframing it through that waterfall process of how would you explain that to someone else's spouse? Dude, she's gifted. She's creative. Anytime God is, touching her with ADD, that's not a curse. That's a gift. The creative companies of the world are created by ADD people. Most entrepreneurs are very creative and they see a hole in the universe and say, I got to fill it with this product or this opportunity. And so instead of me going, it's about me and she doesn't respect me, which is how I used to look at it, I said, she's being blessed right now with something. So I'm just going to watch this happen. And not always. Sometimes I'm going, I was in the middle of something important for me. I know not to bridle it back. But tell the
extra time into our conversations just to allow for that. But and the message in that is to be your authentic self. So many times I'm like, why do I do that? Why do I do that? Why can't I be more analytical like David? Oh, I've cried to you many times about not being that business, but you're the left brain, I'm the right brain, and we really complement each other. So be authentic to you, and it will show through in your marriage. Okay, I want to end with this. I wasn't even planning on it. I had to take myself off screen to go get this. This is something that we talk about at every Cubby Hole get together that we have. And thank you to you, David. You are my side-by-side. That day I walked in with tears and just ugly stuff all over and said, God put this on my heart. But what he put on my heart more is that I need to share it with you because we are married and we need to be together on this. Otherwise it can't happen. And you have been by my side in this Cubby Hole, and you're the sound guy, you're the host. We need your picture on the wall because you're the best MC ever. But what we love to tell the story is that how adversity can be transferred into loveliness and a message from the person that it's bigger than us, from our creator. So the story goes like this, and then I'll wrap it up because I know you have your next call coming up. We were about, I don't know, a week or so before our first show, Leland Clausen.
The grand opening with Leland Clausen. Yep.
Big idea. So, I wish I could show it over there. It's on the wall. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to attach a picture in the comments of the sign. So we were, I was up in my office and someone came up and got me and said, you've got to come downstairs. And you were carrying, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, you and somebody else together, you were carrying a huge big screen TV, and it fell and it shattered glass everywhere. The screen flew everywhere. I came downstairs and I was like, oh, I wasn't all, sunshine and rainbows. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh. I was panicking because I was in my own head. Like, we have a show. What's going on? And we talked about
an interactive show that requires a TV.
The TV was a big part of the show. So I may have lost my Christian there for just a minute, but I went upstairs. The next day I came downstairs, and we tell the story at the end of every Cubby Hole show, that I came downstairs. I turned on these big, beautiful stage lights, and nothing is wasted with God. I turned on the lights, and the floor everywhere was glistening, and it looked like little diamonds were all over the floor. And I just got to chill again. In that moment, I knew what God had in that. It was that with what I do, with coaching, what he puts in me to do, what he puts in you to do, what this Cubby Hole is all about, is taking people that have shattered moments, shattered lives, shattered years, shattered months, shattered thoughts, mindset, and taking it together and turning it into something beautiful. And at that same time, no surprise, I was trying to create the sign. I was writing it in chalk, and the notion went through my mind to make the sign out of shattered glass, because God's love for us takes the shattered glass, the broken moments, and puts them into something beautiful. Even when we don't believe it, even when we don't see it, it happens. And so what we give everybody is, I collected all the glass, and my family and we get together and we make packets. Here's all the rest of the glass. I don't think we'll ever run out. And now when I've traveled, I've given out these glasses. I just gave these out to some women at Chick-fil-A because I did a show from here. But they get a little piece of shattered glass and a mustard seed, because of course the Bible, it says that with faith the size of just a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. So that's the story of the shattered glass. And if anybody wants a packet, because you just need to remember that hope, that shatteredness is not the end, you just write to us and we'll get you one for sure. I mean, if you can't ever be here for a live show, we are praying that happens again one day, but there's beauty in these online chats, because we get to share the ripple effect that God has out into the world from the Cubby Hole. So I'm going to let you go. You probably want to go get a little more coffee before you do your next call, but I love you so much. And I say that for so many reasons. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that love you and respect you for what you do. I had to bring this as my water refill. I bought this for you because I freaking love you. I love you because you're my husband. I love you because the man you are, and the leader of our family. So thank you so much, David. I want to give you the last word before we go. If there's anything that you wanted to add. Oh, and I want you to share how people can get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you. Okay.
Well, thank you, honey. Well, I would just close by saying this. If you're not a regular follower of Marlo, I recommend it. She is my wife, and I hear what she's saying in our private time. I know what her heart is for people. I know the amount of work she puts in to make sure she can deliver results for people that follow her. And she told me to make this show about me and you, not her. But that's so hard to do, because I don't know anyone who meets Marlo that doesn't love her and feel a change through her. And I can't wait for that to be able to start again throughout the country with traveling. But right now, what she's doing with these virtual lives, I just recommend you go watch all of them. She always makes it about others. But anything she's done, I highly encourage it, because it helped me. It was that little conversation in our bed when I was waking up frustrated on how I was responding. That little, hey, consider this. And she just jotted these 5 things out, which is now part of her transformation workbook called the waterfall process. And she's got the rainbow process, and she's got other things as well. But the bottom line is, these are things that work. And I would just say to you in closing, before I give it back to Marlo, is if you came here, if you have any area where you're lacking confidence or where you're feeling, you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I said I was going to do it and I didn't. I said I was going to believe in myself and I don't. You're not alone. You're not alone. Everyone feels that way all the time. And so all I can ask you to do is voice that, go through that 5-step process. What's causing it? Do you believe they're going to look at you a certain way? Maybe your perspective needs to be addressed. Do you believe you don't have what it takes? Your perspective needs to be addressed. Those two things are just a conversation. They're literally a conversation. I sat out there. I still have my workbook, and it's 7 pages of things that affected the way I look at life. And this is when I was 51 years old. And I'd already been through personal growth and I already worked on myself. So you've probably got 5 pages of stuff too that affect your perspective. And I would just encourage you to use the recipe that Marlo gave me, because it changed my perspective of life. And I already thought I had a pretty good one. But those 5 things again are: write down the experience, then write down how that affected you at that age, write down how that then affected and showed up in your life, and how negatively that caused you. I'm not going to call someone. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to dance. I'm not going to ask someone to marry me. I'm not going to go swimming. I'm not going to take my shirt off. I'm not going to, what are the lists? I don't know. I'm less than. Those are all the negative things that came from somewhere. And then step 4 is live that same experience as an adult now with maturity. Or if your son or daughter was living that experience, what advice would you give them? That Marlo said, look at it both ways. Yourself, talking to yourself, or talking to your child. And what advice would you give about that kid who goes, dude, you're stupid. Dude, you're this. Dude, you suck at baseball. Dude, you, whatever that is, what advice would you give that kid, or that kid yourself, or your child? And how will that change how you look at the future? If you take that advice, will you then look at people differently? I'm willing to golf with anyone now. I don't look down at certain guys now because they were the ones who beat up kids in 5th grade that I had to protect. I don't look at people that way anymore. I realize I was judging people through a perspective that I had because of what I experienced as a kid. So Marlo dealt with a ton, and she's used that process to get through being picked on and all this. She's helped people, coach people to go off and do amazing things. And that little 5-step process, someone who I train, I've probably done 7,000 or 8,000 trainings. That 5-step process changed who I am. Mm-hmm. And so live it. That's all I've got to say, honey. And thank you for having me on. And thanks for doing this each week. And I'm glad you're still taking the Cubby Hole to the world until you can bring the Cubby Hole into the world.
Thank you so much for that, David. I really appreciate it. That's a great, great word to end on. I mean, I know we could talk all day. I want to say thank you to all of you that have joined. I see so many comments. I want to put you all back up. I want to put you all up there, but I couldn't possibly put everybody up there. So thank you so much for your comments. We're going to read them later. Sending you all love. We're going to end just saying goodbye, but I want to say I'm so excited about January and February and March. I have an incredible lineup of people that are coming, that are going to, of course, tell us what they do, but they're going to share their stories, their vulnerability. David, thank you so much. I love you. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate our journey. And I usually sign off with my guests, but I want you to stay on, and we'll say goodbye to everybody together. But there is hope. You are not alone. Oh, David, where can people reach out to you?
Oh, thank you. You can just email me, David at David Allen Capital. Allen is ALLEN. David at David Allen Capital. And Merry Christmas, everybody. And we will pray over that chalkboard if you added yourself to it. But yes, go ahead, Marlo.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. We love you all. And from the Rutzes, we just say Merry Christmas, and we can't wait to see you all in the new year. Bye, everybody.
You can do it. You can do it.
Yes, you're not alone.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.